Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine the Sydney Opera House, which, as it were, is both a building and a story about ambition meeting engineering reality. I am Alexei, and with me is Priyanka. Together we will try to be precise without being joyless. A reasonable aspiration when one is discussing over 1 million tiles by the water.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I guess we can start by thinking about why this place on the harbour became a kind of global shorthand for Sydney. It's beautiful, but also complicated. And I mean that in the best way.
To frame our discussion, in simpler terms, the Sydney Opera House is a multi-venue performing arts centre sitting at Bennelong Point on Sydney Harbour, between Sydney Cove and Farm Cove, adjacent to the Royal Botanic Garden and the short stroll from Circular Quay. You can step off a ferry, walk along the foreshore, and arrive at one of the busiest arts campuses in the country. Its roof forms, which people liken to sails, shells, or perhaps breaching whales, create a silhouette that even a child could draw and everyone would recognize. Technically, it is an expressionist composition on a monumental podium, with a reinforced concrete frame below and ribbed precast concrete vaults above. The so-called shells are, strictly speaking, not thin shells, but ribbed vaults assembled from precast ribs and panels. A subtlety important to engineers and arguably to budget committees. It is inscribed by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site under Criterion 1, an acknowledgement of outstanding creative genius in 20th century architecture.
Building on that, it's also a place where, thousands of people actually go inside. Concerts, opera, theatre, dance, and just wandering through the foyers with those harbour views. So the art and the everyday meet on those steps.
This brings us to relevance. Culturally, it has become a national emblem. The sails are illuminated for civic moments and global causes, and the building anchors Australian cultural diplomacy. Architecturally, it is a masterclass in how a sculptural idea can be made buildable through geometry, industrialization, and, to be honest, relentless problem-solving under public scrutiny. It is also a case study in how initial underestimation of complexity and starting construction before final designs are resolved will propagate cost, time, and governance challenges down the line. A few basic facts to set the stage. More than 1,800 performances annually. About 1.4 million people attend those performances. Over 10 million visit the site, and approximately 350,000 take guided tours. The roof is clothed in about 1.06 million ceramic tiles, arranged in chevron sheets, some glossy white, some matte cream, which from a distance read as white but up close modulate glare in Sydney's fierce light. The highest roof point is about 67 meters above sea level, roughly a 22-story building, yet the stepped podium keeps the public realm intelligible at human scale.
And the timeline, right. Like, who dreamed this up and when did it actually open?
Let's start with the history. In the late 1940s, Eugene Ainsley Goossens began lobbying for a new opera and orchestral venue. The town hall was inadequate. In 1954, Premier Joseph Cahill supported the idea. Goossens strongly argued for Bennelong Point. An international competition launched in 1955 drew 233 entries from 32 countries. In January 1957, the winner was the Dane Jørn Utzon. Juror Eero Saarinen famously retrieved his scheme from the reject pile, perceiving its potential. Construction began in 1959 with Stage 1, the podium. By 1961, delays had mounted, and by mid-1961 the team elected to rationalize the roof geometry as segments of a single sphere, about 75.2 meters in radius, enabling standardized precast molds. Moving forward, roof erection proceeded through the 1960s, with on-site precasting by Hornibrook of roughly 2,400 ribs and 4,000 panels, and an adjustable steel trussed erection arch developed by engineer Joe Bertoni to support segments until each vault became self-supporting. Wind tunnel testing in the United Kingdom informed tile fixings for high winds. In 1966, amid political change and disputes over costs and procurement, Utzon resigned. Peter Hall took over interior design, reconfiguring the major hall as a concert hall and the minor hall as the opera and ballet theater. In 1972, there was even a 5-week period of workers' control after a mass firing. A negotiated settlement followed. Finally, in October 1973, Queen Elizabeth II officially opened the building. The total cost reached about 102 million Australian dollars, roughly 10 years late and dramatically over the original estimate.
So yeah, moving on. Inside, we are talking about multiple venues. The concert hall, with 2,679 seats and that enormous mechanical tracker organ. The Joan Sutherland Theatre, with 1,507 seats. And then the Drama Theatre, the Playhouse, the Studio, the Utzon Room, and even the outdoor forecourt with the monumental steps as seating. It's like a campus layered into a sculpture.
Before we get to the complexities, a brief personal note. I admire the work because it demonstrates that when we constrain a form mathematically, here to the surface of a single sphere, we can convert a poetic sketch into an industrial process. It is important to understand that this is not compromise. It is craft at urban scale. Let's proceed to the next point. 3 questions will organize our thinking. First, what were the principal historical challenges during construction? Second, what if the designs had been completed before ground was broken? Third, what remains unresolved about acoustics, particularly in the concert hall? We will treat each briefly, but with, I hope, appropriate rigor. Big question 1, challenges. Fundamentally, construction began in 1959, before critical structural and architectural designs were finalized. As a direct consequence, podium columns proved inadequate for the eventual roof loads and required rework. Schedules slipped and costs escalated. Governance also shifted in 1965. Premier Robert Askin's government placed the project under the Ministry of Public Works, and Minister Davis Hughes's procurement approach clashed with Utzon's preference for negotiating with specialist suppliers. The resulting loss of trust culminated in Utzon's resignation in 1966. Technically, Ova Arup and partners introduced early computer-aided analysis to control the day-by-day placement of roof segments. Wind tunnel testing informed cladding, and on-site precasting industrialized assembly. Design and delivery were inseparable, which is exhilarating for an engineer and nerve-wracking for a treasurer.
I'm curious about the compounding effects. Like, if early podium assumptions were off, how did that ripple into later stages? Was it just cost, or did it change the building we have today?
We can infer several ripples. Redesign and strengthening consumed time and diverted resources. Meanwhile, the roof solution matured towards spherical standardization, which in turn fixed aspects of the exterior geometry. After 1966, interior functions were reallocated. The major hall became a concert hall, the minor an opera and ballet theater, altering acoustical and staging logics. So yes, early decisions and the timing of those decisions cascaded into cost, schedule, and the final use configuration we inhabit today. On to our next point. Big question 2, the counterfactual. What if the government had delayed groundbreaking until designs, including the roof structure and interior programming, were fully resolved? The plausibility is straightforward. A later start might have avoided podium rework, contained procurement to clearer packages, and possibly sustained Utsen's leadership through to completion. Costs and time could have been reduced, and the interiors might have followed Utsen's concepts more closely, including lower capacities with potentially stronger acoustical outcomes. That said, political momentum is perishable. Delay risks cancellation or scope shrinkage. Projects live not only in drawings but in cabinets and newspapers.
Can we maybe now look at feasibility? In real life, do major civic projects ever get perfect information before they start? I mean, wouldn't funding have evaporated if they waited too long?
It is worth noting that perfection is an illusion, but sequencing matters. Even partial resolution of key risks, such as finalizing the roof system and clarifying the hall functions, would likely have mitigated the most expensive rework. To elaborate, standardizing the shells as spherical segments was the decisive buildability breakthrough. Had that been locked in pre-excavation, the podium could have been designed coherently for known loads. So, while politically challenging, a more disciplined pre-construction phase could have preserved both economy and perhaps the original architect's continuity. Next, let's explore big question 3, acoustics and present debates. The concert hall's sheer volume and very high roof limited early reflections for both players and audience. Shortly before opening, suspended perspex clouds were installed in an attempt to remedy this. They have been widely regarded as an inadequate fix. Acoustic consultant Lothar Kramer had earlier warned that pushing the main hall toward 3,000 seats would be detrimental. When the functions were reallocated after 1966, compromises propagated across the two principal venues. In the Jones Sutherland Theater, the orchestra pit remains constrained and has been described as hazardous to musicians' hearing.
What comes to mind next is, are there ongoing efforts? Like, is there research or small changes that can help without altering the heritage character? Or do we need major renovations to really fix things?
Speaking of efforts, the pattern has been incrementalism informed by research. Over the decades, teams have sought to improve clarity and on-stage support within the hall's given geometry. But the fundamental constraints remain those of volume, ceiling height, and stage-to-audience relationships. Any significant improvement competes with heritage obligations and operational demands from resident companies. We observe a living laboratory, small interventions tested against use, with the understanding that a step change would require a carefully justified renovation that honors the building's World Heritage status.
From a different angle, I often think about the people behind the scenes. Like Over Arup's engineers running early computer analyses, or the Swedish tile makers spending 3 years to perfect a 120mm square tile. It makes me wonder how many invisible hands shaped what we now see as inevitable.
Indeed, let us not forget the on-site factory at Benelong Point, turning out ribs and panels with industrial precision, or the adjustable erection arch adjusted day by day based on survey feedback. The building sits on 588 concrete piers, some driven approximately 25 meters below sea level. Even the glass curtain walls framing the foyers represent a post-Utzon solution, steel-framed rather than his preferred prefabricated plywood mullions. The written record is replete with such quiet decisions, each a necessary thread in the final tapestry. In conclusion, The Sydney Opera House is a landmark of modern architecture and a working cultural organism. It is an expressionist composition engineered through spherical geometry and precast logic, stewarded today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We considered three questions: the historical challenges of building before finishing the design, and the political rupture that followed, the counterfactual of waiting to build, and the ongoing acoustical debates that accompany a reconfigured interior. For those studying further, explore expressionist architecture broadly and examine how governance, geometry, and public life converge in such works.
So I guess that kind of sums it up. Thank you for listening, and good luck with whatever you are studying today. Thank you, Professor.